Welcome back to the London Free Press Podcast. I know time is the most valuable of commodities, and we really appreciate you joining us. I'm excited today. It's been a little while since I've spoken to London Free Press reporter Jonathan Juha. Jonathan, how you doing today?
Not too bad on yourself.
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time today. Over the last few days, I guess, you've written a couple of articles, very interesting, about housing and the population growth here in the Forest City and surrounding areas. And some of the numbers that I was reading in your articles are just baffling, for lack of a better term. Like I knew there was like a bit of a housing crisis here in the city, but I don't think I realized just how stark everything was until you see the numbers right in front of you. So let's first talk about the statistics here in London. We knew that when the pandemic hit, a lot of people were working remotely, and that changed a lot of people's locations, especially leaving Toronto, because it's just not as affordable in Toronto, whereas people could move here, go a little west, buy a house or get a bigger apartment, more space. Everybody was locked down, spending lots of time at home. So let's talk about these numbers that we are seeing here in London with regards to growth.
Yep. So basically, we had heard for a few years now that idea that out-of-towners were coming to London. They were attracted by the city's relative affordability to communities that are east of here. And as you say, Toronto, the Great Toronto Area kind of thing. So we've been having sort of like that influx of people coming from other parts of the province for a few years now. It's not a new trend. It's just that the pandemic seems to have accelerated that aspect of it. As you said, people who were living in Toronto, the cost of living is obviously more expensive, not only housing, but in general. And once you have that opportunity of, working from home, your job has become remote, and you don't need to be in the office every day. That opened up the possibility for young families to relocate to cheaper places for them and still, earning the same. And that seems to be what people are doing, like sort of like taking advantage of that opportunity that the pandemic has given them. And some of the places that have seen that influx of people seems to be London. In the latest figures that Statistics Canada released, the population grew by about 5,000 people. That's a net gain. It's obviously more than that people came in and more than that people left, but that's just a net gain. And the majority of those people were people coming from other parts of Ontario. So it seems to back up that claim or that anecdotal evidence that we have been hearing from the past few years, that indeed people are coming from other places within the province and taking advantage of the cheaper cost of living here. And if you think about it, London has, Fanshawe has Western, so good education system. We have a good hospital system as well. So it becomes a very attractive destination for many people now.
Absolutely. Overall, in your article, you talk about London and the area growing at a rate of 0.9%. Doesn't sound like a lot, little under 1%. But then you look at the pace of Canada's population, and we're almost double that. Canada only rose by 0.5% during the same period of time. What's the average price of a house going for as of December of last year here in London?
Well, here in London, the latest figures that we had is about $700,000, which is a 30% increase or around that area in just the last 12 months. And again, the pandemic also played a big part of it. Not only just the work from home phenomenon that we've been talking about, but also, people figured, if I'm going to be staying at home and my kids are going to be doing a lot of online schooling and all of that, I need more space. I need a place for my office kind of thing. And again, London becomes attractive because of that. And comparably, even if you're buying a house or renting, you're getting a lot more real estate, more space compared to the Greater Toronto Area. And so that became a drawing point for many people. And things like, big backyards, pools, and those features became, things that people were asking for when looking for a house here in London. So obviously you have all of these extra demand coming into the market, and supply is just not keeping up. I mean, developers are trying to do their best to take advantage of all of this demand, but a house isn't built in one day. Apartment builders are not built in one day. It takes time for that supply to come online. And in the meantime, we're seeing, all demand and supply simply not meeting it. When it comes to listings, we have been seeing that the number of listings are low, historically low levels. Obviously, the pandemic also plays a role in that. People not wanting to show their house, but it all becomes, bidding words, and it's all this part of this equation that has been pushing prices up and in all aspects of the housing market.
Yeah, you hear $700,000 average price for a home in the city. And I think, holy, like I've lived here 11 years. My first home didn't cost that much. And I don't know that I ever would have been able to afford getting into the housing market at prices like that. It's great that the economy is growing and we are seeing people drawn to our city. There's a lot of amenities, as you mentioned. But like you said, supply and demand aren't really adding up. And we're also seeing that with regards to rental units. And that's the latest article that you've written. If you're listening to this and you haven't read it yet, you can head over to lfpress.com right now to check it out there. What is the average price of rents going for in the city?
Okay, so the latest number that we have, and just to be clear, this includes all types of properties, single bedroom apartments, 2 bedrooms, as well as, basement units that are being for rent and townhouses and things like that. So when you combine all of those, the average is $1,750, which is about $750 more than it was in December of 2018. So in 3 years, the growth has been exponential, I would say. Part of it, and again, it's a lot of people are taking advantage of that, being able to work from home. And I actually spoke with 2 people who made the decision of I no longer have to be in the office, or perhaps maybe I just have to go 1 day a week or something like that. So it made a lot of sense financially for them to make the move. And even with one of the persons who I was talking to, he said, the unit that I have now, I'm paying similar to what I was paying in Toronto, but my unit is a lot bigger. If I wanted to get something of like where I'm living right now, I was looking at 2,400 as opposed to what they're paying now. So it's still, it's the relative affordability of the city that is a big draw for some of these workers, and who can take advantage of working from home and saving a lot in rent.
We talk about affordability, but and I know you said $1,750 is the median price depending on what type of rental unit you get, but I see that figure and I think, holy, my mortgage doesn't cost that much. How are people ever supposed to rent in the city? And then if they do have dreams of being a homeowner, save to buy a house with the average price being $700,000? These figures are astronomical.
Yeah, no, I mean that's the key question, and I also have to clarify as well that because this figure includes the larger units, and again, people looking for 3 bedrooms or 4 bedroom properties kind of thing for rent, obviously that is going to skew also the average as opposed to when you're looking just the 1 bedroom apartment, which are cheaper. But yeah, no, these are prices that for many people are getting out of hand. I mean, I always like to use my own example. I live in a 1 bedroom apartment that when I moved in here about 8 years ago, I rented it for $750. Same unit in my building is going for $1,300. So reaching almost doubling in about 8 years. So it speaks to, the crisis that we're seeing in the city, that there are not enough units out there, and it's sort of like if you are locked in a unit and you have your grandfather for the rent that you have, and you're just getting your annual percentage of increase, you're lucky. But if you're a new tenant trying to look a new place to live, you're finding these prices, and it's definitely tough for people to find a place. And it's not just prices, it's just availability. I've talked to a lot of people, and even the second person who I talked to for my story, who moved from Toronto, he said he ended up renting an Airbnb because he couldn't find something that matched what he was looking for. And he would say, like, I would go through listings and there weren't any units available, or there were a lot of people, a lot of demand, a lot of people coming in. So finding a place is also hard. It's not just the price that is affecting renters and people looking for new units. It's just finding something that is available that matches your budget and what you're looking for. That is also tough here in the city right now.
Last time you and I spoke, I had mentioned I have a friend who had moved to Toronto last year. She got a new job, had to leave London. She got into a bidding war when she was trying to rent an apartment in the city. Are we seeing similar things here because supply and demand don't add up, or is it just the best applicant wins?
Well, I've heard it's not like I won't say it's like a common practice, but like, I mean, if you're trying to rent out of a company or something like that, that's less likely to be the case. Maybe if you are a homeowner who has, you're renting, your basement or something like that, that could happen there. When you have several offers, there could be some bidding wars in there, and people offering a little bit more of the asking rent just to being able to secure. Hard to tell. There are not statistics to say how widespread that is, but definitely you're hearing anecdotally of situations like that happening here in London as well.
Just getting back to the gentleman that you spoke to who is renting an Airbnb, it kind of begs the question again. There's great infrastructure here in the Forest City, and I feel truly grateful to be a Londoner and to live here. But why move here if you have the availability to work remotely from anywhere, if you had to rent an Airbnb because you can't find somewhere to live? You also mentioned that a lot of companies are posting rental units that aren't actually available in your article. Why are we seeing this? I had never heard of this until I read it.
Well, you know what? It's just to keep the applications coming in. I guess landowners taking landlords, I mean, taking advantage of the market and just wanting to, I'm pretty sure they're not having any issues finding any renters for the units, and they're not staying, days vacant or anything like that. It's just, just to keep the properties out there and continue to receive the applications. So once something opens up, they can easily, find the perfect match for them. So it's definitely like, even the housing market is a seller's market now, and the rental one is definitely a landlord's one.
Wild. Thank you so much for your time and for breaking down these numbers for us, Jonathan. I always really appreciate your time. I look forward to catching up with you next time. Maybe we will eventually see a decrease in prices. Are we hearing anything like, is the decline coming? I heard this like a year and a half ago, and numbers just continue to creep up.
It's hard to tell. You know what? At the end of the day, it comes down to supply and demand. The demand seems to be strong for all types of housing. And I mean, it's not just London. Like you're hearing about these bidding wars and prices going up in a lot of parts of Canada and in Ontario. The supply is supposed to be coming down the pipe, but we will see whether it's enough to sort of like meet that demand and enough. I mean, I don't see that even if prices decrease, that we will see them go down to what they were 4 or 5 years ago. Hopefully, I guess, would be that they will stabilize a little bit and they'll be at a more, reasonable rate of growth that doesn't leave so many people behind.
Jonathan, thank you so much for your time today.
No, thank you for having me.
If you've enjoyed this, don't forget you can always hit subscribe. If you have not yet subscribed to the LF Press podcast, we are streaming on all major platforms. You can go back and listen to previous episodes. Of course, we are on YouTube and over at lfpress.com. We'll be back again next Thursday with another edition of the LF Press podcast. Until then, stay well.